This is my story about my uncle, Martin John O Loughlin. Martin John was born in 1903 and sadly died in 1975 at the age of 72. My uncle, Martin John, was many things in his life. His main occupation was a hackney, that's our taxi driver. His father was a master tailor, John O Loughlin, who married a lady called Mary Heron from Kilnacoff. They had 5 children, 2 boys and 3 girls. The first home was on Tobber Hill in a small house. Martin John was the youngest boy. His brother Paddy became the Mayo CEO in the vocational education system. My mother then was Maisie, who married Willie Lyons from High Street. Martin John's mother was an astute businesswoman. As the house on Tobber Hill was too small for 5 children, a tailoring business and a small shop, she bought 2 properties on Peter Street and let them into one. Business flourished, so she bought 3 more houses on Tobber Hill and let them out to rent. Her next purchase was 2 fields in Carabon. So Martin John became a small farmer as he kept cows in the Carabon fields. He loved his cows and particularly his calves. He wanted to buy a lorry, but his mother said no, as he would be in working clothes all his life. So she bought him a beautiful Ford Essex for a taxi business. It was the perfect decision as he loved the company of people and he was blessed with the glorious tenor voice and a perfect ear for music. He got a car in 1928 and this was the only car for hire on Peter Street. His passengers knew of his talent, so he had to sing and drive for them. Radio was becoming popular, and particularly John McCormack. Martin John was, as many claimed, was McCormack's equal. And, well, let's see, but John McCormack had the benefit of professional training. Martin John loved his cows and his hackney business, so he showed no interest in voice tuition. It was a pity, we all say, or maybe it wasn't. In 1939, World War II started. Petrol was rationed. My uncle got his ration permits. The only cars in Westport belonged to the priest and the doctor and Martin John. His business boomed and tires were impossible to buy. As time went on, Lyons came into Cove in Cork. He got many runs to collect Americans coming home and vice versa. Of course he had to sing his way from Cork. The songs of the time were very emotional and there was many a tear shed on the journey. He was running out of tires, but he knew a bank manager who had his car on blocks during the remainder of the war, so he bought his tires. Sometime later, the airport at Renana, now called Shannon, opened and had transatlantic flights. For Martin John, it meant that more singing, more Americans and more singing. From the early 40s, I spent a lot of time with Martin John. At this stage, he had a beautiful Ford V8 Deluxe. Now, on the rear of the car, he had a fold-out steel platform to carry the large trunks from the USA, or the bicycle for the passengers who cycled into shop and taxi home to the country. I was on many of these trips. To get back to his great voice, he had joined St. Mary's Choir in Westport. Gabriel Kelly was organist and choirmaster. Gabriel and I arranged a session after the church closed and we recorded many of his well-known hymns and songs on a little tape cassette. My aunt Lena Loughlin worked in Dublin for many years. She brought the tape into the Eamon Andrews studios to have it put onto a 78 RPM vinyl LP record. The management in the studio wanted to meet him for an interview, but Martin John would not leave his cows and his faithful customers. I remember one night he was driving home, an old lady with her shopping. There was a very narrow boring up to her house. He helped her into the kitchen with her shopping. In 2 minutes he was in and out of the turf shed and brought in a supply of turf and a lovely blaze of fire going on quick time. That was the kind of man he was. On another occasion he was called to the same house to bring her husband to hospital. As no ambulance could get up to the house, Martin John got a wheelbarrow from the shed, placed the patient gently into it and wheeled him to the car, where he put him into the front seat. Martin John was physically very strong. He was in great demand for weddings. His car was always spotless for the bride. He would also sing during the ceremony. His Panis Angelicus, Just for Today, and Good Nights Ave Maria were beautiful. He never used a microphone, and he could deliver perfect notes to any corner of the church without strain or shouting. Martin John was always delighted if I was the photographer at the wedding. He sang at many concerts in the dance hall, cinema on James Street. The ideal cinema could convert into a concert hall when required. One night when I was coming home from my studio on Bridge Street, I went up Peter Street and dropped in to see Martin John and his wife Margaret. He was about to walk up Towerhead with his milk cans to his field in Carabon, where his cows were ready for milking. I said, sit in and I will drop you off at the Tenor Road Bridge. I was hurrying home to Rossbeg. Peter Heaven, his first cousin, was on the bridge, and the last memory I have of Martin John is he and Peter Heaven leaning on the bridge wall, and the two of them looking out at the reek and talking to each other. I went home to Rossbeg and had just started my dinner when the phone rang. It was John Malloy from Carabon. He said, can you come up to Greta McGrail's house? Martin John is not well. I was there in minutes. Greta was one side of the fire. Martin John had just died, sitting the other side by talking to Greta. A short time later, Dr. Bert Farr said nothing could be done. He was gone from this world and his beautiful voice was silenced forever. Thank God we had the records. We built a new house on the land where he milked his cows for the last time. And where I am sitting now is the house we built. I have lovely memories of walking up Peter Street in Towerhead with Martin John at a very leisurely pace with his two cows on our way to his fields in Carabon. At that time cars were very few and far between. Most of the houses on Towerhead had half doors or the full doors would be left wide open. The man or woman of the house would see the cows just ahead of us, so there was always a greeting and a chat. The cows were used to do this so they would stop. The small black cow would stop and press herself against Martin John, and he would place his arm across her back. The large red cow in front would look back now and again and give a short loo. She was anxious to get to the fresh green grass in Carabon. Martin John died at the age of 73. He never drank or smoked. Up to his untimely death, his voice was as good as ever. I had the unenviable job of going back to Peter Street with Dr. Farr to tell his wife Margaret the terrible news. She insisted on coming up with me to Greta's to see him while he was still warm. When she went in, she immediately hugged him and kissed him. I had to make several appeals to ask people to leave us to our private moments. Years later, we had an authority on the voice of Tenor John McCormack at one of our Westford Arts meetings, and he said that Martin John's voice was as good as the best.